Welcome to our brand new session for JioSaavn for creators for hosting this. Big ups to them. We're here to talk about celebrating Indian independent artists and their potential to be the future of the music industry. While we know that's the case already, I have three very, very influential people from the independent industry and also trailblazers for somebody like me who's sort of seen them sort of do their thing and get really inspired by them. I'd like to start off with Ankur. We've got Tiwari, who needs no introduction. I've grown up listening to his music, been very, very inspired. And one of the things that really stands out for me when it comes to Ankur is that he's always been ever so helpful. Regardless of whether I have like these tiny doubts, I'll just sort of message Ankur and he'll always be responsive, ready to get on a call. And I think that's a really, really cool thing. And I think he's been sort of spearheading the Indian independent scene for a really long time now and wears many, many, many hats. Moonlights as a singer-songwriter, producer, and at the same time also sort of supervises music for a bunch of different films and is sort of at the cusp of taking Indian independent to the mainstream. So thank you so much for joining us, Ankur.
Thank you for having me. And after you said needs no introduction, you went on. So I go embarrassing me. But so thank you for having me.
All right. I've got Kisnuka with us, who is, I've seen sort of evolve into this amazing sort of personality who's always talking indie. I think she's been using her Instagram to also sort of up the game when it comes to independent artists. She's been really supporting the scene. She's been dropping a lot of new music and also is known for her activism. So thank you so much for joining us, Kisnuka. How are you?
I'm really, thank you for having me. I just want to say that the first time that I was introduced to you was because of your a certain kind of voice of activism that you do have, and that's really what drew me in. And then I started listening to your music, and I felt a kinship. I was like, yes, this is the same boat. Okay, good. Amazing. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, very, very happy to have you over here. Next up, I've got Mally. I moved to Bombay about 5 years ago and sort of bumped into Mally at a gig. Known so much about her, been listening to her music. One of the reasons why I told my parents that I wanted to start doing independent music is because I think Mally's sort of been doing this for a really long time and is sort of doing this so well and with so much honesty. She has a new album out this year called Caution to the Wind, which I've been playing on loop. Age of Limbo is a great song. Thank you so much, Mally, for being here. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I had no idea that was the backstory, but thanks.
So we're here to sort of discuss the future of independent music, but at the same time sort of discuss some of the things that impact us as independent artists, right? And I wanted to sort of take the time out to also define what indie really is, because I think in the Indian scheme of things, indie is sort of a word which tends to get jumbled up. So I think starting with Kisnuka, what do you think is truly indie for you, and what sort of sets you apart from sort of everything else that is happening around you from a standpoint of the Indian music industry?
I think one of the biggest things, one of the main things about being an indie artist is ownership. And I have been a part of the commercial industry for many years. And that's something that stands out to me. There's a certain amount of loss of control and power that you have when you're in the commercial music industry, because there's a different way that it functions. I think for independent music, it's a very open space for you to grow. And I think where we are right now is really great because there's power that comes back to the artist. This is how I feel now. Like I feel like I have the power in my hand and I'm able to do the things that I wanted to, but I felt confined by, not really by any rules per se, but I would say just by the functions of the industry in a certain way. So I think that's one of the biggest things about being an independent artist.
Amazing. Taking from what Kisnuka said, Ankur, what do you think in terms of, you worked with the who's who of the industry, your career spans such a long period of time. What do you think is the sort of distinction between what you call non-film music, which I feel sounds like old 90s sort of Bollywood music. But what do you think is the prime distinction between maybe a signed artist to a label, independent music, which is not non-film in the traditional sense of sort of labels backing it, but it comes under sort of heading of indie right now? What do you think is the distinction, and how do you understand that?
I feel like that ownership is a big thing. That's technically how you would see what's independent and what's not. But I go with the whole idea of the spirit of independent, and that can happen in commercial music as well as in independent music, where you're not bound by strict briefs or like do's and don'ts, and you just end up doing what is instinctively coming to you, and it's inside out rather than outside in, the whole process. And I really believe in the spirit of independence everywhere, both in technically the independent circuit and the commercial circuit. I mean, independent artist also wants to be commercial, that's why I don't kind of draw a line there. But at the same time, technically, it is how much of the pie is owned by you.
Got it. Malvika, I think Ankur also said something really interesting about sort of not making formulaic music, for example, right? And that's something I feel like is really true for you as well, because all of your music sounds different, from starting out as a singer-songwriter with a fairly acoustic sound. You sort of graduated into sort of this new sound. Is that something also that comes as part of being indie, to be able to experiment with different?
Yeah, the greatest thing about being indie is you can really just do whatever you want whenever you want to. And there's no one to tell you that you should be thinking otherwise. Today I can say I want to put out like an acoustic singer-songwriter song, and then tomorrow I can just say, you know what, I'm just going to put out like an electronica song. And there's no one who can say no, that you're violating the terms of our agreement, because it's just me who decides. And that way you also get to be a lot more experimental. You tend to write about things that are not the norm. So it's not like just because a love song does well, that's what you have to write, or just because this is the topic that's trending now, you have to maybe write something for that. It's really, you can do anything at any point, and to like any extent, any skill you like. So that kind of freedom is really one of the most liberating things about being an indie artist.
Got it. Kisnuka, I have a question for you. When it comes to what Mali said about sort of choosing themes that might not be considered to be commercial, like for example, love songs are supposed to be sort of the most like go-to sort of topics because they end up selling and are considered to be commercial. From your point of view, for somebody who's written about so many different themes, how do you sort of strike that balance between sort of being a commercially viable artist yourself, and at the same time follow what you consider to be independent and sort of truly what your creative expression is?
Honestly, I think it's about being authentic to who you are. And that's one thing that I've learned, especially over the last 2 years, that you have to express, how you feel, and you have to write about the things that are important to you. Yeah, sure, you can write, like you said, formulaic music, there's a certain ease or viability in making a love song. And if you feel like that, you should write a love song. If I have heartbreak and I want to express that, I'll put it out in a song, and it's a release for me as an artist, as a human being. But I do think that, especially in a space where you are actually, as an independent artist, looking to find your space amongst what is this commercial industry, which has a lot of money and power and reach. I think being authentic is the thing that will help you to stand out. So write about whatever you feel about, and that's what I do. For me, music, art, visuals, I mean, it's all a tool to put forward this message that I have, or what I feel my purpose as a human being is, So I approach it from a very different point of view. But I think authenticity is what will set you apart. What is it that you feel that's going to make you different from everyone else?
Got it. Ankur, since you wear so many hats, how do you sort of manage that distinction between staying original and at the same time when you're sort of supervising music for films, how do you sort of keep that balance between the two as to sort of making sure that it's commercially viable for the producer, for example, or specifically for your music, how do you switch that button off and sort of make sure that it's staying true who you are? How do you sort of switch that on and off, or is there a button all?
I don't.
Always on.
Yeah,
Always on?
I feel like I never think like that. What's commercial and what's not. When you're working on film projects and you just going with the flow of what the script is demanding and what the director is looking for. When you're doing your work, you are hearing your inner voice and acting according to that. There are no buttons and in fact, there are no hats. I'm doing the same thing all the time. I'm sometimes doing it as a supervisor, sometimes I'm doing it as a storyteller, sometimes I'm doing it as a lyricist, sometimes I'm doing it as a musician. I'm telling the stories that are kind of that I'm feeling. I'm hearing stories and I'm feeling people and feeling things, and I'm expressing and giving it a form of a story in different ways.
Mally, wanted to ask you, I think the pandemic has been sort of, I think, financially difficult for a lot of independent artists, right? I think for all of us, a huge part of sort of revenue streams have sort of dwindled down because of the pandemic and due to the lack of opportunities when it comes to live gigs. For an independent artist who's been sort of doing this for many years, how do you think it's affected you in terms of, are there new opportunities that have opened up also as a result of the pandemic, or what has been your sort of state of mind during this pandemic?
Well, for me, I've gone through a lot of changes in this past year. For one, I moved from Bombay back to Chennai, which is where I am right now. I can't complain. It's been a great test in really figuring out how adaptable you are as an individual. And the pandemic was just something that, sort of just put the next step on a fast track. I said, okay, fine, here's the next challenge, do what you must. And so I had to move back to Chennai and sort of like reinvent, figure it out. I was actually been doing a lot of work remotely. So I'll, get stuff that I will sit in this very space and record and send, or I'll even go to a studio and send it over. Sometimes I'll travel to Bombay for work or travel elsewhere. So I'm trying to figure it out. I can't say that like I have figured it out, but every day there's something new that it's still a work in progress. So right now the whole game is really just how do we retain what we have and also be adaptable enough to pick up new skills and do new work. I've also been in this saying yes to life zone. So if someone tomorrow calls me and says, hey, you want to try this Bengali song? I'll be like, yeah, man, I'm totally down for it. No problem. Just get a language supervisor. And I'm like, cool. So I've been saying yes to a lot of stuff. I think that's been a good learning for me as well.
Got it. Kisnuka, I wanted to ask you about your experience with the pandemic. I know that there's like Mally said, she's also sort of now open to a lot of things. I think you've sort of taken it upon yourself to also give back, sort of give a sort of platform to young independent artists through your Instagram, etc. How do you think that's helped when it comes to sort of feeling more like a community? I think the music community has definitely gotten closer in the pandemic. What has changed for you through the last year or so?
I've actually had the exact opposite experience from Mali because now I say no to a lot of things. It's been completely the opposite for me. I had the time, and I know everyone did, to go inwards, and really think about what was it that I was doing and what I really wanted to do. So everything just became a lot clearer, and a lot of the bullshit just dropped off, and there was a massive amount of unlearning that I did, more than learning in the last year and a half. And whether that was about rights or entrepreneurship or what does it actually take to build a brand, and I'm putting it in air quotes because I do think that artists are all like small businesses, in a way, and especially independent artists. So you're kind of running the show, and you have, whether it's management, and then you have there's a lot that goes into it, and I was struggling with it, and that's when for me it was this, and I was complaining about it online. I was like, oh God, this had social media shit, having to make all this content and being, like it was, I felt very restricted actually by it. And while I was complaining, there were all these, artists who were writing back to me about how they felt, how they felt the same way. And I was like, oh my God, I mean, I've been doing this for so many years, and I feel like this. I can't imagine how like a young new artist must feel right now. And what can I do to help, And I realized that there was two things. One is that I could share information, whatever it was that I had learned, which I do actually with a lot of young artists and new artists. And the other was share space. I think that where we are today in this world, this is now a new world, and this is a new age of technology. And so obviously that the challenges that we have today are completely different from like the last couple of decades. So I think the way forward is actually to collaborate, creative collaboration. And that is really important, whether it's sharing of information, sharing of space, sharing of skill. There is strength in numbers, So I think this is one of the most important things for all of us, get out of our comfort zone and be willing to co-create value.
Amazing. That's very inspiring. Ankur, I know you've spent a lot of time in the hills as well over the last 1 year. What do you think has changed for you? Was there a massive amount of unlearning that you did, like Kisnuka mentioned? Is there new opportunities in terms of tech that you've dabbled with, or anything new that sort of you realized that that's something that you weren't getting the time to do during?
I mean, you definitely got to spend a lot of time with yourself and your thoughts. So I feel a lot of us have gone through this introspective phase, which has been very nice, and it's been challenging as well. A lot of things that you were kind of brushing under the carpet have kind of emerged, and you have to, like, there was no option but to face them now. And so that's been interesting in a way. But as an independent artist, since the time I've been making music, I was expecting something like the pandemic, because whenever things go right, something messes up, in an independent artist's life. And it never is perfect. So it kind of is that we are equipped. They get a check every month and they don't know how to handle it. We as independent artists, where we really pretty much all of us, and I've known Kisnuka and Mali and you, like all of us have gone through a phase where we didn't know where next month is going to come, or where are we going to pay our phone bill from, and those kind of things have never kind of held us back in making what we make. This is an exaggerated millionth version of that. But I knew that, like last year I'm saying, like obviously the 2 years are cancelled, so the one before was really good for me in terms of my work got recognized, made a bunch of money, and this thought was there, now something's going to mess up, and but didn't expect this. So yeah, in that way, independent artists, I feel, are always equipped to face challenges, and they really do reinvent themselves. I think Mali used that word, which is very interesting, because it is a constant struggle to reinvent yourself, and to only people who can reinvent themselves, artists who reinvent themselves, last for a long time. But in other ways, I got to do many things which I was not doing earlier. Writing music just on my own was very difficult. I love meeting people. I would have loved if this was happening in a real room, where I could just like lean forward and hug you guys instead of seeing you through this kaanch ki diwar. But yeah, so this is the kind of learning that's happened, that this is real now, and kind of have to deal with it. I did so many Zoom gigs which were nice. Like earlier I used to like really not feel happy about them, but now I'm kind of used to them, and it's strange. Earlier you would like lean forward and touch people from the stage, now you're reading comments. So I don't know, sometimes you're doing gigs with glasses on, and I don't know. So it's changed, and I think one is, thank God the internet is not expensive, it's free. They don't charge you for that, so it's saved a lot of us. And adapt or perish, I think that's the learning.
All right, Mali, I have a question for you, as somebody who's also released music through the pandemic, and I think all of you can chime in on this. I think platforms have become sort of more open to curating more independent music. So for example, JioSaavn's done a bunch of these playlists. They've 60 different independent playlists in the last few months with over 10 languages, right? There's a plethora of musicians putting out their own work. I think people have started realizing that you don't really maybe need to go to a studio to record. You can sort of make collaborations happen remotely. How has that experience been for you from the music creation aspect to releasing it and getting support from various platforms?
So in my case, I think we got lucky because most of the album work was, the recording and the actual meat of it was done before the pandemic started. So what we were doing for the first half was actually just mix related work and a little bit of post-production and stuff, which honestly, if we were in the same room, would have taken like a few days in total, but it took months because of the back and forth. But that's something that was frustrating. It's really not the same as being in the same room. And then we had like a few edits that we needed to do, and then we came together and it was done in like 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that was interesting. It was like, I guess there was a point of time where you were thinking, is this all going to be remote for the rest of time? But the synergy you have while being in the same room, like Ankur said, is never there. You can never recreate it with the internet. That said, sometimes I wonder, like, how would this same situation have been had it happened in like the mid-90s? We would have all died. Like, imagine, like, we had to wait for the internet to load one picture.
I love that she laughed after saying that we would have all died.
We would have all died. I think about the flip side a lot. I think about what would have happened without the internet. And obviously, I mean, even though there's so many faults that we can find with what the internet is doing in terms of social media, the FOMO, and the general over access to things, it's facilitating a lot of things. Like even the fact that we can have this conversation right now, I think is, you can't take the existence of the internet and the year we're in out of the equation.
Do you think the productivity has increased? It's a question for Kisnuka. Because whenever we've tried to sit together, we only faff.
I have to say one thing. Since everything has moved online, and Ankur is going to be very happy to hear this, I am always on time for every single meeting, every session, everything that's scheduled. I'm there like 2 minutes before.
That's fantastic. Today also you reached on time. I was thinking like, wow, amazing.
All right. What about you, Nuka? What your sort of understanding of how independent music has sort of maybe taken off when it comes to sort of platform supporting it, and at the same time this huge boom of a lot of new musicians putting out their music on these streaming platforms?
It's a fight in a way, you know. And it's great also because there's a lot of great new music, but to really to put your music out there and to get people to hear it, it's not easy. I was reading about this, you know, how it works with with labels and stuff, you know, when they have it's called, I think, the fat cat strategy, where they just blast the music. Let's say it's a song and they just blast it to like 10 million people, and then out of this 10 million people, there'll be like some kind of 1 million people conversion, you know. And then you don't have to think about who, what, where, what kind of audience. You just, you know, it's like a general blast. But I think with indie, with, you know, limited resources and limited access, I think you have to be very, very clear about where your audience is. You have to go find them, you know, because you don't have the power to do that massive blast. So how do you find this audience? And with a lot of the streaming platforms, you know, like for example, playlisting is really important. You know, the algorithms are really important. That just means that we have to enhance our knowledge, and we have to know how to hack this. You know, I think it's a lot about empowering yourself with knowledge. Yeah.
Got it. I think, Ankur, you might be asked this question a lot, and I thought I'll use this forum to ask you this. But I think you see a lot of changes from sort of mainstream labels to sort of new age labels also coming in. There's an Artist Originals, Big Indie Bank, Inking Records, Misfit Inc. What is your sort of take on some of the things and what an independent artist can do to sort of release their own music? Is signing to a label important? What is your take on the whole independent versus signed to a label, signed to a hybrid label. I think management structures have also changed, right? It's no longer typical management agencies who will change your life in the span of 6 months. So what is your take on the entire thing of sort of newer labels coming in, and at the same time, how should an independent artist go about it?
I feel the most important thing is to write a kick-ass song, which is something that a lot of people forget to do because they're so busy calculating the other things. As an artist, like, so proud of Kisnuka. Like, I've seen her for so long, and now she didn't need to do this give back to the world, you know. She's a successful artist. Being a female musician it's not easy, at least in India. Struggling through that, making a life on her own, supporting people around her. Same with Mali, a really hardworking young musician. But how Anushka, I can't say Kisnuka anymore. So how Anushka has really, I've known her since she was 13. So it's like really hard for me to call her Kisnuka. But how Anushka has like really like made a label, supported artists around her, and she's the kind of a person, for instance, who goes through, like, if she's going to produce, then she's going to go through a course, read all the books about it. She reads manuals. She's that kind of a person. I feel those kind of things are very important, where you, like, you know, kind of empower yourself, and with the power that you get, you help people around you. Unless until you make that, no label, no management, nobody's going to help you, because we have to help each other. In India especially, the culture has been, at least in the independent side of things, where people have helped each other out without a reason, and because of that, it became so powerful that a lot of labels reach out to you and they speak to you, and then they want to work with you because they can't ignore you. And it's interesting, like, even with people like JioSaavn, it was very encouraging for me when they called me and they said, we'll take from you what no one else is taking. It's very encouraging, you right? So it's these kind of things only happen when you respect where you are, you have you humble about it, and you reach out to people and you help people out and empower yourself at the same time. And I feel it's an organic process. Once this basic is there, combined with a kick-ass song, then I think other things like basics, like label, bada label, chota label, management, bada management, chota management, all of that will all fall into place. But you need to be a good musician, and you need to accept that you've probably written a bad song. A great musician can always write a bad song as well. So sometimes you write good stuff, sometimes you don't write good stuff. Don't chase success, just vent out what you're feeling.
What, Kisnuka, you were saying something.
I wanted to add something to that. You need to be super, super clear about who you are, because everyone will take from that. And this is an exercise that I did also for myself, you know, like I actually sat down and made myself an identity document. I just sat down and I was like, okay, who am I? Where have I come from? How have I arrived? How have I arrived here? And doing that exercise made things so clear to me, and then to the people that I was working with. Because now I'm so clear about what I want to do, who I am, and why I'm doing this. Everyone else around me can take from that and then build further from there. It doesn't happen if you have to give yourself that time. It's very easy to, you know, because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of expectations. You really need to take a little bit of that time, not a little bit, quite a bit of that time for yourself, and really dig deep.
And be honest.
Absolutely.
We've had these conversations so many times, like, who the hell are we, what are we doing? And it's gone for years. Yeah. And we've lied to ourselves a lot of times. Yeah. And then finally, eventually, you know, you find who you are, and then everything makes sense, and probably, like Anushka, you start saying no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, fair enough. Mali, what do you think is sort of the next thing that you're excited about for yourself and from an indie standpoint? What do you think is the next big thing? It could be from tech to genres to artists. What is something that keeps you going and keeps you excited?
I mean, more and more with this past year, I've seen that being indie is a great sustainable choice, in a sense that it's something that can work as an actual institute. Quite simply, you know, you don't need the involvement of a lot of people and interests and companies and all of that. Something can be made from start to finish in a single space with maybe just like one or two people giving creative inputs. I'm just saying, like, in an ideal sense. But, there was a point of time last year I was talking to someone from a streaming service, and they told me that they're seeing a real uptick in the number of indie releases, only because the traditional film framework wasn't able to meet up and kind of be in the studio and give inputs. And when that failed for that short period of time, indie kind of took over. And so I think it became even more clear that there's going to be like a blending of lines between what we know as indie and what we know as like film and non-film, basically. And there's going to be a lot of like borrowing from the two worlds for the other. And it's going to be interesting to see really how that plays out in the next few years. Because people are going to really understand that what we have, our simplicity, our quick action, and our ability to just sort of adapt and figure out what to do next is something that people are going to want to like get on board with. Otherwise, there's it's like red tape. There's red tape even in big industries like Bollywood, in film, in whenever there's many people's interests involved. So I'm excited to see really how what we know of the indie scene evolves in the next few years.
Got it. Kisnuka, what do you think is sort of your platform going to grow bigger? Are you going to do more of these live streams as a whole, as an industry? What do you think is the most important thing to look out for?
I think there's still a lot of adaptation to be done. This is now we're looking at AI, blockchain technology, crypto, NFT art. Like there's a whole lot of these things that are happening that, as artists, we need to wrap our heads around. I've also been very systematically and very carefully pulling myself out of this bubble that I have of being an artist and thinking larger than that. I think that entrepreneurship, so hard to even say that word, productization, these are things that are a way forward for artists, because you don't make money from music. I mean, well, most of us don't make money from music in that sense. So I think that it is really a completely new environment for us, and we need to evolve with our skills. This is what I'm working on, evolve with skills or intelligence, and actually create these opportunities for myself. I think that's really for us. I mean, besides what we talked about earlier, this is a really great way forward. There's a lot of space actually. And I think the audience is also changing, this new generation of, okay, I don't remember your question on me anymore, but this new generation of audience, this whole thing is changing, Like, for example, if you're like a brand and you're like, hey, I made a sustainable product, and they're like, really? So how did you make it? What went into it? And what about the other stuff that you have, So they really invested in the artist, in the brand, in the philosophy, in the ideology. And that's something that's new. I haven't seen that before, And so I think it's a great space for artists. I definitely think that we have, with, like Mali said, the internet is an amazing and scary place. But if we really learn how to harness, and I'm still struggling with this, I'm just like, with like Instagram and YouTube. And so it's like, okay, it's really hard. But you got to do what you got to do. And so that's how I'm looking at least the near future.
Ankur, what do you think I think Kisnuka touched upon like NFTs. Do you think tech is going to change the way we function as a music industry? I think, what do you think is sort of the future for you as an artist, and at the same time the ecosystem?
I mean, for me, it's a very, very scary situation because it's not about change, because change always happens. It's just the speed at which things are changing, and it's like at rocket speed right now, with escape velocity just going forward. What's happening? Like, I remember this song "I Feel Love." When that got made, it was the first song that was made just by computers, apart from the voice. And David Bowie had said that that's the future of music, and everyone was said, oh, how can you make music without musicians? And where we are right now. in a few years, and very few, like probably 2 years or 3 years, you won't need musicians to make music, because AI would be able to make music. You could just feed in Radiohead in there, and they'll study Radiohead all albums, and they'll make a Radiohead AI album. So I feel what one our responsibility as artists is to create honest, irresistible art increases manifolds, because one thing machine won't be able to do is to be impulsive and behave like humans. So how much human element can you put into your song? I'm not talking about playing songs, but in your art, in whatever form. It becomes very, very important for us to look forward to that, because you can't predict what's going to happen. It's going in such speeds that today it's crypto, tomorrow it'll be crypto, day after it'll be some other technology. We don't know what's going to happen, and you can't compete with it. There are so many platforms. Some platform you would have invested all your time on Instagram, and suddenly Instagram is dead, and some other platform is ready. So, but I was there, but you are here. So you can't run that race. The only thing we can do is to be irresistible and make work that is irresistible. So I feel like not easy, but it's a challenge that we should take up.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of open this last question to all of you and sort of conclude the session. If you have any closing thoughts, please feel free to chime in as well. But I think globally, I think through the pandemic, there's been a certain sense that independent music is on the rise. Do you guys think that globally independent musicians are the future of the music industry? And do you think the Indian music industry is also going to play a key role in that? I'd open it out to Mali, because I think Mali, you make music also that is truly global, right? So just wanted to understand what you think of that.
I think so. I think with every release or everything that we do, each of us, we're one step closer to putting India on the map as far as music is concerned. And it's not one. I think we all assume that there's going to be one crossover artist who's going to just blow up and do that for us. But at the same time, we don't have the kind of infrastructure that, say, like the K-pop scene has, where they have like this, this entire industry that grooms artists and invests in them and pushes them. We don't have that either. We're going to have to like adopt a more grassroots strategy, which is why it's probably going to take us a little longer to get there. But I definitely feel like it's surely and slowly happening. Like even 10, 15 years ago, the idea that you could be an independent musician and actually have all the creative control and the control of your distribution and everything within your reach, I mean, quite alien if you think about it. And so I think it's just going to be progressing more in that direction, where people are going to notice what we're doing. And they keep talking about how India has numbers and stuff. And if we just really, they say, oh, if we get 1% of the market, then it's like that many million and all of that. But then really it's just a matter of like numbers and reach. If we convert enough people to just being open to the idea of listening to independent music, and you'll be surprised, there are more people than you think who listen to music for the sake of music, and not whether, oh, this is Bollywood, or this is like music in Tamil, or this is music in Bhojpuri. It's not the case. People listen to music for the sake of it. And it's important that we encourage more people to listen to what we do. And only with just micro steps, like almost like pastors or evangelists, we have to kind of like slowly push what we're doing out to the people, and it'll happen.
Amazing. Kisnuka, what do you think?
I think we're in this era of decentralization. So,
I love that. Can we put
yeah.
it in the promo?
It's true. I do feel that when it comes to freedom of expression and freedom of speech, where we are right now in India, there is a slowly tightening noose. But you can be sitting here and you have audience around the world. Like you can be anywhere because of the internet. You just need to know how to get to first decide, because these are all, I mean, if you actually break it down, these are all markets that function differently. Okay, if you look at a UK market, you look at a US market, you look at a European market, an Indian market, we all function, every place functions differently. Again, it's really about, where you want to go, and I've been looking into this quite a bit, and I honestly feel like I do think we have that. Like Mali's this album, I think this is a global album. This is all. It's true, and so how do we get this album now to the rest of the world? What Ankur said is completely correct. पहले music बना लो और बढ़िया music बनाओ. Then this is the next step. But if you have clarity, then you can go towards it with like single focus, and you need that focus, and you need that hard work. Telling myself.
Thank you. That was awesome. All of us need to hear that. Yeah. Ankur, final thoughts. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like after listening to you guys, I feel I'm going on a completely wrong path. I just need to call my manager. What are we doing? I feel I can't win the race against numbers or reach or anything. I'm not even running that race. For me, it's very simple. The truth of the matter is, mainstream always picks up from the independent scene. And it's not a recent phenomenon. It's since ever. It's when kids that are fast start playing rock and roll, they'll put it in the movies, or they put it in the mainstream thing. Or kids in the street start doing hip hop, then they'll start putting it in American movies and Indian movies everywhere. So I feel that you need to, at least I feel that you don't have control over the numbers. You have control over what you write, and you should only worry about that. And if you can write a song that fixes a broken heart, even if it's one, or if you write a song that makes somebody plant a tree, great, and it will go, it has to go, and probably it doesn't need to reach the numbers. You have affected in the world in a way that those numbers can never affect. You should stand by things, and you should make honest music. That's what independent music is about. Make honest music and hope it reaches that one person or few people, and then also hope that those few people spread it out through the world and it reaches further than the coronavirus. How's that for an answer?
Yes.
Nailed it. That was awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us on this session with JioSaavn for Creators. If you guys enjoyed the session, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you so much.
And subscribe to Anushka's and Mali's and my YouTube channel as well. And Raghav's. Okay.
All our city musicians looking out for each other.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this. And we'll catch you soon at a gig, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Indeed.
Zarur.